General Sharif, you've been in the front line of countering terrorism. Do you think these advantages that we've heard that terrorists have, the ability to act quickly and to use these new methods of communication, give them an advantage?
It gives them a huge advantage, and I must agree with my panelists. It's not only a cancer, it's the most deadly cancer. And I personally feel these terrorists have the ability to mutate, to morph, and they can do that very quickly. And obviously, this platform of digital age that is available, whether it is social media or any other platform which is available, they use it very, very effectively. And recruitment is one thing which is done on that. And I think the financiers, the betters, the facilitators, the sleeper cells, and the sympathizers, all of them are involved in this. And I totally agree with His Highness. You know, there's a requirement to for the free world to gel together and to react in such a fast pace. I would like to say that we need to go on a surge to get rid of this menace. And they plan their attacks very well. They want glorification. If you see the timings, if you see the choice of the targets, there's a method to this madness. It's not that somebody from the cave is just planning it. It's much more to it. And they have been very, very successful in it. And I think we have been late in time. But if I just say a few words about my country, Pakistan, and the region, we were having around 150 odd incidents a month. And from that, we came down to a single figure in 2016. And now, with the help of God Almighty, we have one odd incident in 1 or 2 months. So from bit to bit, you know, or you can say from hours to days to weeks and to months. And there we are in months. And I'm sure we'll have that first 1 year. But as you said, it's a very, very deadly thing. And we all need to put our act together.
Yes, please. Yes.
Absolutely right, because in Pakistan also, it was a whole of nation approach. And I think that paid. We had some very horrendous attacks, like the school incident, in which, you know, over 135 children were killed, so, and martyred. So everybody came together and gelled together. So I think at the international level also, there is a requirement to have synergy in effect and to have a platform. And UN resolution like 1373 says it all, you know, everybody has a responsibility. And I think, as you said, you know, about the digital age, and I think intelligence sharing is key to success against terrorism. And that's very, very important. And if there is intelligence shared and there's actionable intelligence, and if people work on it, the countries react to it, I think it can bring in a marked difference.
Please.
When I was referring to this whole-of-nation approach, obviously, I just gave an example, and you're absolutely right. It has to be at the international level. And I'll say that these freedom of speech and, you know, other things like human rights and all, they are limitations, and they are difficult to handle when you are dealing with hardcore terrorists. And if you talk of human rights, I'll just give an example, again, of about 100 odd mothers whom I met after the incident. Myself, my wife, we were there. And they were all demanding that they should be caught and apprehended and hanged there in the school premises. So somebody mentioned about human rights. So they just literally got hold of me and said that, what about our human rights? So there is a balance which is required. And especially for those, I would say, hardcore terrorists who have been holding heads of 2 of my soldiers, you know, one in each hand, and playing football with the third one. So there is a need to, you know, deal with these terrorists in a very firm, in a very bold, audacious, and I personally feel in a manner that it creates deterrence. Obviously, the norms and other rules and regulations need to be followed, but I think that's the way forward. for those who, and then the second point, obviously, the counter narrative, that is very, very important. In fact, the same vehicle which they are using, I personally feel we should be using it better than that. And this counter narrative should be going out day in, day out. And all our youth and, the people who get radicalized or who get impressed and all this narrative should be so potent, so strong, that it should nullify.
If you go back to the General, General, do you think you can deter somebody who is prepared to sacrifice their own life and their family's life?
One can deter, why not? If there's a proper mechanism in place, and if there are courts which can take decisions, and in our case, I'll openly admit, we had the military courts, and 170 odd individuals were convicted and punished. There's a number of them given death sentence now. Obviously, there's still a very large number which is going through the process, and I must admit also that this was need of the hour. It was unusual time, so for that unusual, you can say, arrangement was required. So we did that, and there is deterrence, which obviously those who are in the pipeline, those who are gradually getting indoctrinated and all, they do get deterred. So I think apart from a kinetic operation, there's a development prong which is required, and with that, this deterrence has to be in place. And it does
A lot of heads nodding around the circle here.
But I'll just like you, because, about my previous comments, we are running 7 de-radicalization centers, and we have about 2,500 individuals. Sabaung is the name of the center, which is in light at the end of the day. So that is, those are being run. 2,500 individuals have come out of that. We involve the families. We have NGOs, everybody's working on it. In fact, we have experienced and we have delivered a number of fields. It is about 338,000 families, which is over 800,000 people, were moved out of an area. That area was about 8,000 square kilometers. So 8,000 square kilometer area, people were moved out. Then we carried out the operation, and I'm very happy to state that around 90% have gone back, to those areas. So we cleared the area, moved them back, and so all this has happened with the theme build better than before, and obviously poverty, education, health, and all these things. We even gave them polio drops, and Robert Gatewood rang me up and thanked me. So that's the type of that's what I was saying. There's a whole of nation approach required, and there is a full theme behind it. So only then, it's not only it's not only an operation. It has to be a concept which deals with all these dimensions. Only then one can bring down terrorism and control extremism.
My question is for the general, and about this tension between fighting the Taliban when there are sympathizers within the population who may not be in the tens, but maybe in the hundreds of thousands who are supporting them. How do you deal with this sort of tension? How do you go after the Taliban when there are large parts of the population who might be giving them shelter or maybe sympathizing with them and approving what they do? I'm just wondering if you can give us some insight as to how Pakistan dealt or continues to deal with this issue.
Yes. May I answer?
Please.
The circumstances in Pakistan are difficult. There are huge challenges, and we need to understand those challenges. For example, we have over 3 million Afghan refugees in Pakistan for last over 30 years. We have a 2,400 kilometer border between Pakistan and Afghanistan, which is a porous border. We have intertribal linkages. There are a number of villages which are, you can say, divided villages in a sense that you can, have dinner in one house and then have lunch in the other, and you'll be on the other side of the border. And then you have, as you said, a lot of people who are intermarriages, and so the milieu or the environment is pretty difficult. But Pakistan is managing that. Once we launched this Operation Zarb-e-Azb, we decided that we will establish writ of our country rid of Pakistan, rid of the government in all the areas. So now the writ of the government exists in whole of Pakistan, and the border is being managed. There are difficulties on the other side. There are pockets in Afghanistan where there are a lot of all these organizations, a lot of terrorists and the groups are there. And then there's a talk of various tribes and various networks like Afghanis and all. So that all is dependent on the situation in Afghanistan. So we hope and pray. It is our brotherly country, and we hope and pray that stability returns to Afghanistan. And ours and Afghan destiny obviously is linked. And I personally feel the moment there is stability in Afghanistan, things will
Yes.
about various conflicts that are going on in the world. I personally feel there is a requirement to resolve these conflicts, but that would also, like Kashmir is one, Palestine is one, another conflict. And once we do that, I'm sure, again, it would help in having a better understanding, better harmony in various regions.
Thank you. Vikram.
I agree, because glorification, in my opinion, is something on which these terrorist organizations thrive. And that's why they choose the right moment, the right target and all. And so in that way, maybe in the future, the West, or the developed countries, they will have problem in a sense as far as this cyber is concerned. If it has to be something, it has to be spectacular in nature. And I hope it doesn't happen. And it would be very unfortunate. But that's what they have always been trying. So that would be something which one can see with this. But there is a requirement to have filters. There is a requirement to control the technology in a manner that it does not get into the hands. It's easier said than done, but there has to be something done about it. And I personally feel the international community needs to sit together, develop a counter-narrative, and develop, as far as this digital age is concerned, develop some system that we have a check on it.